Hey everyone, Herc Magnus here again, and I am back for part 2 out of 3 of my video series on how to research domains for your PBN. In this video, I'm going to show you guys my personal research process for looking at the health and power of domains, both that are in pre-release and are expired. The process is kind of similar. There's a little bit of tweaks, but it's basically the same thing. So this video is going to be a little bit longer than the other one simply because I have actually 10 domains that I want to take you guys and walk you guys through the research process. I want to walk you through the entire thing just because each one kind of has a different scenario or different things that are happening that could happen when you guys are going through the research process, and I just kind of want to give you as big of a picture as I can. So the video will be a little bit longer, but hopefully you guys will see that it's really solid information. You're going to get a lot of information on how to do really solid research for your PBN. So my process is basically a pretty simple one. We only look at 3 things, but we look at certain things within those 3 things. Number 1 is I use Majestic to do all my research. I do have a paid account. You can use the free account, but of course with a free account you're limited to how much research you can do. So if you're pretty serious about building up a pretty awesome PBN, then you might want to really think about investing into Majestic. So in Majestic there's kind of really 2 or 3 main things that I look at, and then a 4th one if I need to. Basically, first of all, the trust flow and the citation flow. I'm looking for a pretty balanced profile with a minimum trust flow of about 20. If I see my citation flow is getting way above my trust flow, that just means there's a lot of links coming in that are crappy links, and I'll kind of show that to you through the examples. The referring domains is a really important one, and I see a lot of people on Facebook and stuff buying domains or even advertising domains just based on trust flow, and there's a huge problem with that. And that's basically this. Let's say, for example, you're looking at a PBN site you want to buy. It's got a trust flow of 25, but it only has 4 referring domains. So when you build your new PBN on it and any one of those 4 people that are linking to you see that it's changed, they might remove their links. So if 2 out of those 4 people remove their links, you could lose a ton of trust flow from that. Maybe you only had 2 out of 4 links that were really strong. So you would go from a trust flow 25 quickly to maybe a trust flow 5 or 6 with only 2 referring domains. So basically when you have more referring domains, you have less of a chance of losing those links quickly, and losing links means losing trust flow. So if you want to extend the shelf life of the power of your PBN, just make sure you have a lot of referring domains coming in. I usually typically like to start at least 20, but I'll go up into the hundreds. I love getting tons and tons of referring domains just because it just gives me such a long shelf life. And when I'm around 20, I mean, you guys don't stick to that rule. There's deeper research you can do. Like for instance, if you had 20 referring domains and then you looked at the backlink profile, you looked at the actual links coming in. Say you had 20 referring domains and 40 links. Well, maybe only 3 of them are really any good, and that's the same scenario as really only having 3 links. So that's, you kind of got to just go and do a little bit of deeper research sometimes. So these are just the general rules. 20 usually I find has enough links to support a bit of longevity. The next thing I'd look at is basically the anchor text profile. I want to see that they have a nice balanced pie chart on Majestic, and I'll show you that obviously throughout the examples. And I'm looking for things like, usually when sites get de-indexed for penguin penalties, it's because they have too many of the same anchor text coming in, and that's really easy to spot with that anchor text profile in Majestic, so I use that. And then the backlink profile, once again, is kind of what I was talking about with the referring domains. You're just basically making sure that you have enough referring domains coming in to support the trust flow that you have, and that it's going to last for a long time. So once I'm done the Majestic research, I basically move into the Google index and strength penalty test. Now, when you're looking at a pre-release domain, a lot of times they're still going to be indexed. Sometimes they're not going to be indexed. But when you're looking at an expired domain, it's typically always going to be de-indexed because it's already expired. So with indexed domains, you kind of can skip this step and go right back into archive. But with pre-release, sometimes they're indexed, sometimes they're not. So if they are indexed, you definitely can get some information looking at the strength and the indexing of them. And once I'm kind of done that, Then I look at archive. Archive.org or the Wayback Machine. I don't know why it's free. I would pay as much for the information I get out of this site as I do with Majestic or Moz or any of these other things, like $100 a month, no problem, just because the information is so helpful to what we do with buying PBNs. It tells you absolutely everything you need to know, and you're going to see how I use all three of these things in conjunction with each other on the examples. So let's get started with the examples. I'm going to switch over to my computer screen and take you through these 10 examples. Okay, here we are. So basically I like to start with my 3 tabs in order. So I have my Majestic tab in one, I have Google in another. Notice I'm not signed in. I don't want Google having me being signed in and seeing all this search history for PBNs that I may or may not buy. And then I have the archive.org, the Wayback Machine, open in my 3rd tab. So basically, I'm going to go through the research process. At first, when I'm doing these things, I'll be a little bit more detailed, but as we're going through them and you're starting to understand what I'm doing, they'll speed up. So we're going to check our first domain. So let's just say I was searching for domains and somebody said this one may be available, and I put it in, and what I'm doing first is I'm actually checking the subdomain. I typically find that the subdomain has the best metrics. So when you're researching your PBN domains, make sure you're checking both the root and the subdomain because you're going to want to use the one that has the higher metrics when you install your PBN. So you can see this one's still got amazing metrics, 26 trust flow and 110 referring domains. But if I go to the subdomain, you'll see that goes up in trust flow, but referring domains are the same. So when if I were to use this in my PBN, I would want to make sure I installed it at the www version. The other thing you want to take note of in Majestic is that you have both a fresh index and a historic index. The difference between those two, the fresh index gives you the data for the past 90 days, whereas the historic index is going to give you the data, all the data that they have that goes as far back as they have. So you definitely want to check both, and then sometimes one's going to be more relevant to your situation than the other. For instance, if you have a really old domain that hasn't been, maybe indexed for 3 or 4 years, you're probably going to want to look at the historic data because nothing's happened in the last 90 days. Versus if you have a brand new domain or at least a 1 or 2 year old, you'd want to kind of look at both fresh and historic. So I'll just pop over to the historic to show you the difference, and you can see it's dropped, but it's still actually pretty good. So in the past 90 days, it's saying, we've lost probably some. What's happening is the trust has dropped, but the referring IPs has dropped too. So we've probably lost a bit of both good links and bad links. So now what I'm going to look at, 100 referring domains, which I'm really good with. Trust flow and citation flow are close together. So when you have, what you'll most commonly see with kind of crappy domains is, even if you have a trust flow of 20 and you had to say a citation flow of 40, what that means is you have a high influx of links and not many of them are that good. You'd see maybe, in a better example, actually, you'd have a trust flow of maybe 5 or 10 and a citation flow of 20 or 30. You have a lot of links coming in, but they're kind of crappy links. And the way you can kind of tell that is with this cluster of links. Each pink dot represents a link coming into this site, this LAU host. If you had a high citation and a low trust, this cluster would actually ride the bottom, and that's just a bad situation. It just means a lot of links, really crappy links. The best scenario that you guys could ask for is kind of what you're seeing here. This cluster is riding this line. The higher they go up this line, each dot, the higher it goes to the top and to the right, the better the link is. So just to give you an example of the perfect website for illustrative purposes, Facebook.com has the most links probably ever, and you can see those clusters go, they ride the line all the way up to the top, and anything that's kind of above the line and approaching is even better. Below the line is kind of weaker, but you won't typically find PBNs with the Facebook kind of clusters. You'll see them more like this, or with 1 or 2 or 3 dots. So ride that line and you're pretty safe, and the higher you go, the better. The next thing we want to look at is the anchor text profile. So what I'm basically looking for here is I'd like to see a lot of brand links that are related to the domain name. So this one is LAU host, or URL links. With this one I see thank you first, which is a little bit weird, but then these are listed in order as well. You can see kind of the pie chart highlighting as I cross these numbers. are these anchor texts. So 6% LAU host, 5% cheap web hosting. So I'm seeing URL, kind of cheap web hosting related keyword, URL, metal 8 screens, which might be related. So it's kind of okay. It's not the best I've seen, but it's actually decent. What I'm not looking for is to see something like if I had saw something like web hosting and it was like 80% of links or 70% of links or even 30% of links for anything. You just don't want to see that over optimization of anchor text. Typically this other, when you hover over this, you see it says other anchor text. This is typically in a healthy situation going to be one of the biggest slices of the pie, just because it's anchor text that are stuff like click here or website or here, go here or whatever. And they just kind of lump that all into one category. So it's okay if you see this slice of the pie being the biggest slice of the pie. So once I've looked at all this stuff, I kind of think, okay, well, this is good. Everything's kind of adding up. Good links, good clusters, balance, lots of referring domains. All right, well, now I want to go check it out in Google. I want to find out, is it indexed? Oh, and by the way, the first 6 domains that I'm looking at are all pre-release domains. These are domains that are about to expire. So I definitely want to do this this third step of my check process, or sorry, the second step, which is the indexing and power checking. And right away, I see that the site is not indexed. So I'm going to do the non-WW version to check that, because sometimes only one or the other is indexed. And we see neither of them are indexed, which kind of makes me ask the question, why does this site have such good metrics on Majestic, yet it is not indexed in Google? Well, to find my answer, I definitely would use the Wayback Machine. So I'm just going to pop the domain in there. And I see it goes back to 2004. So what I'm going to do is I want to see what it was when it first came out. What was this website? And we're seeing LAU host, one-stop web resources directory. So it looks like it is a web hosting directory. So I'm going to fast forward a couple years just to see what is going on. And it looks like, so the domain had expired here. You see that it's now into a CETO, which is an auction. So I'm going to fast forward a little more. And now it looks like I'm seeing, it's all a lot of web hosting stuff, but I still see to purchase this domain. So maybe it was a for sale page or something like that. I'm going to fast forward a little more. And I'm still seeing the same thing. I'm going to fast forward again. And what I'm really looking for is a major change, like a left turn away from what it was, like a web hosting directory. Like I'll either find something like a lot of Chinese links, or here you can even say the title is now cache advanced, and this is bad. If you see the title up here in the tab, cache advanced, so stay, like what I said, stay away from any pills, porn, or payday loan links. Actually, I don't think I mentioned that, but you don't want to see that stuff in your anchor text. So as soon as I see this, I know it's bad. Now, if I fast forward again, you're seeing now it's a Chinese. So this website, although it has good metrics, it's changed hands numerous times and it's not indexed in Google. And this is probably why. So this is a domain name that I would absolutely 100% stay away from. So we are now actually just going to drop this whole thing. As soon as I see something that I know I don't want the domain, I just drop it right there and move on to the next one. So I will load up the next site and see you in a bit. All right, moving on to the next domain, we have havasuvillage.com. So this is once again another pre-release domain, and I see the subdomain. I'm in the subdomain, which is usually the higher. I see trust flow of 17, citation flow of 24, with only 13 referring domains. So I'm not really that happy with this off the bat, but I am going to go through the video with you anyways, because there's some interesting situations. So if I check the historic index, I got a little bit more referring domains, but my trust flow dropped, so that means there was more bad links earlier on. So I'm going to stick with the fresh index here. And you know, the cluster is okay. You're kind of seeing a few riding that bottom line, which is what I'm talking about with when the citation flow starts getting high and the trust flow is low, you kind of get the bottom line riding. So that's not that great. The anchor text profile half of the links are the URL, which is okay, simply because we don't have that many links or referring domains. So when you have really low numbers, your pie chart slices get a lot bigger. And then next we have brand, Havasu Village URL, and then another URL. So things are, I mean, the metrics aren't that great, but let's go look at what's going on in Google. So we do site, www version, oops. All right, so we actually see 24 results, so it is indexed. And now we're going to do a strength test. So we're going to take out the site and search for the domain name with the W in it, or the www, and see if that appears in Google. And actually it does here, Havasu Village. So we see it there, we see it there, we see a third instance there. So that's actually pretty good. So it's somewhat healthy. So we're going to do another strength test with less information. So we're just going to take out the www. And we are not seeing it here, or here. And so now it's fell off the first page. So it only passed the first test. So it's you know, basically you could give it like a 1 out of 3 strong or something like that. If I was to go to the next level, I would actually take the period out of the .com and then do a search again. And then finally my last test is actually to take the .com out, because now you're doing an actual keyword search for the brand. And if you ever find a domain that kind of carries through and you see it on the first page all the way through, especially to the brand, it's a really, really strong domain and it's really, really healthy in Google. And each search, the way I do it this way is each search kind of, it gets a little bit tougher for Google. You're giving it less information. So this is a URL search. This is less of an information of a URL search. When I take out the period and just put in the com, this is still like kind of like the domain, but it's now a keyword search. So it's searching for Havasu Village and com. So that's a keyword search with the brand and the domain. And then finally, this is just a brand search. So each one gets progressively harder than the next. And it's just a way to kind of measure your strength and health of the domain. So once again, it is indexed, and then we only got to 1 out of the 4 health checks, so it's not the strongest or healthiest. So we can go into here and look at what happened with this domain and see if there's anything we can find. So I'm going to go back to the way back and look at Havasu Village, and I'm going to start here in 2012 to see what it was. So its first entry, I see Havasu Village and all kinds of weird texts in a foreign language, so that doesn't really tell me much. I'm going to go to this tall one next. And now I'm seeing a different title, Havasu Koi. So here's the website, and it is still in a foreign language. So now I'm, you know, I don't really love foreign languages, but I still want to see what happened with this domain. Did it change hands, or did anything crazy happen with it? Still the same. And then the last entry, error cannot be displayed. So basically what's happened with this domain is it's just, it is in pre-release, but what's happened is that the owner just didn't do anything with the website, or the hosting expired. And when the hosting expired, you get your pages coming up that start looking like this. You'll see all kinds of things. So this domain, at this point, there's nothing crazy that happened here. What I was looking for is if the domain had obviously changed like the last one did, like it turned Chinese, it really changed hands. This one hasn't. It just, the hosting probably expired, and then they had the domain registered for longer than the hosting, and it just went away. So that's probably part of the reason why it's not that strong in Google, but it is indexed and it did pass the first out of the 4 health checks. So this is something that you can add to your PBN. It's got okay metrics and a little bit low on the referring domains. So I wouldn't want to pay a lot for this domain just because of that. So what I would personally recommend is, this is something like if you threw it into Phoenix and nobody else put a back order on it, you would win it for $20 in Phoenix. I definitely wouldn't put it into NameJet or Snap Names, because then the minimum you're going to pay for it is $59, and it's just not really worth that. So there's a good example of a site that is indexed and in pre-release and kind of healthy, but yeah, it's worth maybe like 10 or $20. So that's my recommendation on that one. And let us move on to the next one. All right, the next one that I have on my list is hawksnestresort.com. And right away you can see, oh, this looks like a good one. So we got trust flow 29, citation flow 35, 337 referring domains, which is awesome. You have a really strong cluster that's riding that line, so this is great. Bonuses, we have governmental backlinks, and we also have EDU backlinks, so this is looking really, really good. Next thing I want to look at, definitely the anchor text profile. Looking for Hawks Nest Resort brand type links. So right away I see Hawks Nest, so brand, URL, URL. Hawks Nest Ski is kind of brand. So it's all brand and all URL and very balanced. This is all looking really, really good right away. So next thing we have to do, obviously, is check this in Google. So we're going to do the site and the health check. Is it indexed? It is indexed, and they have 94 results. So we'll check the other version, and they have 162 results on the non-WW version. So we got indexing. So now we want to do health and strength. So we're going to look up the domain with the www. I see Hawks Nest Tubing 1 and 2. And Hawks Nest Zipline, hawksnest.com, Hawks Nest. So we don't see anything, we don't see the domain. So I don't have to go through the next ones, because if it's not here, it's not going to show up on the harder searches. So right away it makes me question, though, why does it have such amazing metrics, but it's not showing up in Google? And our answer for that is always going to come from the Wayback Machine. So we are going to look that up. And we're seeing a really old domain all the way back to 1997, which is super awesome. Keep in mind this is pre-release, so this isn't expired yet. So we see Hawks Nest Skiers Mountain, which makes sense with the domain name. I'm going to skip forward a bunch of years. So here we're seeing it's now the Hawks Nest Golf and Ski Resort. So it's kind of updated a bit, but it's still basically Hawks Nest, which is fine. Moving forward a few years, still seeing Hawks Nest Golf and Ski Resort, which is fine. And still the same thing, so I'm going to go forward even a few more years. And now we're seeing a little bit of a site change, which might be an update. I see an email down here, info@hawksnesttubing.com. It's still Hawks Nest, but the email address isn't making sense with the domain, so that's just something to kind of keep note of. I'm going to move forward. Still the same. I'm going to move forward. It's still the same. So I'm actually just going to go right to the end of the line here and see what it does. And it is a 302 redirect. So Hawks Nest redirected itself. Let's see. I'm going to back that up. I'm going to back up one just to see, because when it 302s, it kind of sends us. So at 302 to Hawks Nest Tubing, which was actually the email address that we saw down here. So because Hawks Nest, the domain that we're looking at is Hawks Nest Resort, and we see that they 302'd over to Hawks Nest Tubing. Now, obviously, I'd like to believe that Hawks Nest it's still the same brand and stuff, so they obviously just built a new website and 302'd their old website to their new website. The website never really changed or turned into a PBN or went Chinese, so it's actually pretty safe. And that actually makes sense with the site check too. So when we do, sorry, not the site check, the health check, when we do the first search for the www version of the domain, we see Hawks Nest Tubing, which makes sense because when you 302 a domain, the domain that you're sending it to is what gets listed in Google. So that makes sense. So we can kind of go through the strength check this way, and we still see Hawks Nest Tubing even with that. And then we can do take out the period, and we still see Hawks Nest Tubing #1. Now we'll just take out the .com and do the brand search, and we still see Hawks Nest Tubing. So obviously the power of the links that it does have is still helping rank the tubing sites. So in this instance, this is a safe domain to register for your website or to put a back order on, at least. So what I would do here, since it has such strong metrics, is you kind of have to make a decision. You would definitely put it into Phoenix, but I'll show you guys a little trick, and I'm just going to show you phoenix.com just in case you had never seen it. I can't log in obviously because you would see all my domains, but this is where you would go to sign up for Phoenix. With Hawk's Nest, you would put it into Phoenix as a back order, and if nobody else in the world put in a back order on any of the other registrars like Namejet or Snap Names, you win it, and you'll win it for $18. But something else you can do is go to Snap Names as well as go to Namejet. And what you would do is put the back order in at Phoenix, and then you would watch, actually, you would put this domain in at, we are looking at Snap Names. I'm also going to put it into Namejet. If you wanted to try and win it for cheap, you put in the order at Phoenix and then wait to put in the order at Snap Names and Namejet until you see somebody else has made a bid on it. We're seeing that it's actually not even available. Hawk's Nest added to my wish list, so they don't see it there. And you don't see it here, the status is closed. So this actually, because I'm shooting this video a little late, it's actually already kind of closed. But what you would have done is if the auction was coming up in say 2 days and there was no bidders on it, because it'll show you right here the number of bidders, you would just wait. You would wait it out until the very, very end. And if this stayed at 0 bidders on both Snap Names and Namejet, you'd likely win it at Phoenix for $18. And could you imagine paying $18 for this kind of domain? I'm sure that you would absolutely love it. But if you see that a bidder comes up before the auction starts, then obviously you're not going to win it in Phoenix, and you're going to have to make a decision if you want to get involved in the auction, and you'd have to put in a back order at Snap Names. So that's kind of a really sneaky way to kind of, you know, save a few bucks and really try to make sure you win it for $18, and it's a really great way of doing things. So that's a good example of a strong domain that actually was 302'd, and we found out all that information just using the Wayback Machine. So we are going to move on to the next one. Okay, so moving on. We're still in the pre-release domains. And our next one is .org media. So we have another strong trust flow, a balanced citation flow. We have a good cluster with actually a really nice looking link up here. We have 41 referring domains, which is good. We have educational backlinks, which is good, so a bunch of bonuses. .org media is the brand. We're seeing all brand and URL and then others. So everything checks out here. What we are going to do now is obviously take it into Google and do the site and strength test. So we have 10 results. It is indexed in Google. We check the www result. Now we have 13 results, so it is indexed there as well. So now to health check 1 of 4 for the full domain, and we see it ranked number 1, 2, 3. So that is good. We're going to take out the www, and now we see still ranked number 1 here, which is great on step 2. So here comes step 3. We're now into a keyword research instead of a domain research. And we still see it on the front page, which is really good. So now we've passed 3. And finally, I'm going to do basically a brand search. And are we going to see this on the first page? No, we don't. This is a subdomain. So we went almost all the way through all 4. So I'll do one more search, .org media. And that's okay, we don't see it, but we did see it on 3 out of the 4 checks, which is pretty amazing. So that's really, really healthy. And so things check out there. The last place we want to check it is in Wayback Machine, just to make sure everything is on the up and up. We hope that it doesn't change hands. So another bonus, it's an old domain, 2001. So we'll take a look at what it was. It is the Summit Consulting Collaborative. It's a new internet publishing venture. So that's the information about what it is. We'll see if it changed hands. We'll go a few years ahead. .org media produces content for the nonprofit sector covering technology. So it might have been a bit of a change here. I'm not really sure. It was a Summit Exchange before, and now it's .org media. It might have just been kind of an update of maybe like their brand or whatever. So now it's back to Summit a few years later. So it's kind of the same thing. We're going to look at what's going on here. It went a few years without any entrances, so something's definitely happened. It probably was expired, or not expired, it was the web hosting expired or something. And we're not really seeing anything there, so I'll go kind of right almost to the end. And now we have a 302 to .orgmedia.org. So 302 to itself, which is a little bit weird. I'm going to go right to the very, very last one. And now we have the expired registration. So it was basically, from what I can tell, it never changed hands. It did change kind of subject matter a little bit, but that's probably from the same owners because it did go back from Summit to .org media to Summit. So I don't see anything wrong with this domain. This is what a clean link profile looks like. And that's when you get kind of these big clusters in here, usually that's when the site was the most active, and then you get these long periods of inactivity. You want to make sure you check as many of these as you can, because you really want to see what was going on, whether it's being 301, 302, whether it was expired, whether it was going through a registration recovery, stuff like that. So as far as I know, this domain was it is good. It's a healthy domain. It doesn't have a ton of referring domains, but it's double 20. The one thing we can do is take a look at the backlinks just to make sure it supports the amazing trust flow that it has. And we see a link with a page flow of 58, or URL, or page trust of 58, and a domain trust of 55. That's good. 25 and 24 is good. 21 and 30 is good. 22 and 31 is good. And these numbers are basically looking for the same thing that you would look for your own PBN, but now you're getting a collection of these. So these are a lot of really powerful links, which makes me believe, this is an excellent site that you can add to your PBN. Once again, doing the trick. Throw it into Phoenix, and then go watch on Namejet and Snap Names. If you see people are already bidding on it, the only way you're going to win it is to get involved into that auction. But if you get to the end of the line when the auction's almost over and nobody's bid on it in Namejet or in Snap Names, you're likely going to win it in Phoenix for $18. So another great example of an awesome domain that is super powerful and healthy in Google that would do probably wondrous things for your PBN. All right, on to the next one. All right, moving on to the next one. We have DC Shepherd's Market. And once again, we have amazing trust flow, 28. Citation flow is balanced. The referring domains is 25, which is a little sketchy. It's over 20, so it's good. We'll move on. The cluster is pretty good, riding up the line. And then we're going to look at the anchor text profile. So Door Country Shepherds, that's brand. URL. Door Country is brand, more brand. So nice balanced anchor text profile. So everything kind of checks out here, and we are into our site and strength test. It is indexed, one result. And the WW version is also indexed, and we see it's Door Country Shepherd's Market. So now time to do the health check. So DC Shepherd's Market, there it is, number 1 there, which is good. That means it's somewhat strong and healthy. Here we see it number 1 again, so it's 2 out of 4 checks, healthy, that's good. And now we'll take out the dot, and then... So for the first brand.com search, we don't see it, so it's not as strong as we hoped, and we're not going to move on from there just for to make the video shorter, but it did get 2 out of 3, which is not bad. So obviously we would want to put this into Wayback Machine and see what the story is on the domain and whether we would want to put it into our PBN or not. Okay, so Wayback Machine, here we go. So 2011, it's only 4 years old, which isn't that great. I like to really get a lot older domains in Door Country Shepherd's Market. So there's the website, and there's not that many entries, so I'm going to kind of go more near the end of the line. Still Door Country Shepherd's Market, which is good. And I'm going to go to the very last entry that they had before Wayback no longer saw it. And what I see is the page is no longer archived. So this is good. This is a clean profile, hasn't changed hands, hasn't changed into Chinese or anything. So it does have pretty good metrics. It's really strong. It's got 25 referring domains at this point. Knowing that it's not super strong in Google, I'd want to go look at the links. So we can check out the backlinks. And there's a pretty strong link, there's a pretty strong link, there's a pretty strong link, there's another one, there's a good one, and then that one's not as good. This one's decent, but a no follow. And then they kind of start dropping in power. So it's still got some actually pretty good links. So this is another one that I would definitely want in my PBN for $18. So once again, register it in Phoenix and then watch Namejet and Snap Names. If you see somebody get into the auction there, then you got to make your choice to get into the auction. Otherwise, if you don't see auctioneers on Snap Names or Namejet, you're likely to win that in Phoenix.com. So that's it for that video, and we have one more in the pre-release. So I'll see you in the next one. Okay, this is the final domain that I'm going to show you guys in a pre-release fashion. Comdroid.org, and we're going to have to go to the summary for this one. And we see a nice trust flow of 29, a citation flow of 28. We see a nice cluster of links heading up the line. Kind of got a little bit on the bottom, but that's all right because we have good trust. 32 referring domains, which is good. We have educational referring domains, which is another bonus. We don't have a ton of links, so we're expecting to see pretty big anchor text section. So half of it is brand, 35% is URL, and then we have just more versions of URL. So that's all okay. That doesn't matter. Let's move on to the site and the index and health check. So it is not indexed here. So there's no point in going on with any other checks. I will just check the other version. So yeah, we're not indexed at all in Google. So we can't really do a health check. We're de-indexed in Google. But once again, we have strong metrics and balanced link profiles. There's nothing that kind of signals to me that this domain would have been de-indexed for penalty reasons. So I'm just going to look at it in the Wayback Machine and see what is possibly up. Okay, number one, it's not that old. So we'll look at what Comdroid was. A static analysis tool for identifying application communication-based vulnerabilities. So it's some sort of internet or tool. You can see malicious service launch or stuff like that. So we'll look at it later on, another year later. Same site. And then the last entry was in 2015 that it had. And this is just the domain has expired, or buy this domain. So somebody had picked it up. I guess Cito had it, but now it's in pre-release. So once again, another healthy domain. Not a change of hands, no things, no changes to PBNs or Chinese sites or foreign sites. So the only issue is that it isn't indexed, but the reason that it's probably not indexed is just it hasn't been around since 2013, so over 2 years. So it's probably just been de-indexed out of the Google index just because the site's not been around. So this is something that it's a little bit of a risk, but I mean, when you've got all the information and you have the full story, it's definitely worth putting into Phoenix for 18 bucks to see if you can pick it up. So that concludes kind of the research that I do for pre-release, and next I'm going to move into expired domains, which is a lot tougher. But hopefully you've got a lot of good information on how I do the pre-release research, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so now we're into the expired domain research phase, which is obviously a little bit different than the pre-release because none of the expired domain names that you look at are going to be indexed in Google. So you basically just have to use the Wayback Machine to figure out, you know, if it has good metrics and it's not indexed, why not? So it's a little bit quicker. So I'll just get going with this. And the first domain I have is discount bags on sale, which right away, I mean, anything that's like cheap shoes or discount bags, purses like that, stuff like that. Usually it's people used to build like a ton of links to those kind of sites. But we'll just go through it. This one has trust flow 21, citation flow 31, which the cluster is riding line, which is pretty good. 67 referring domains is also pretty good. But then in the anchor text, we're kind of seeing coach wallets, handbags, and I mean, that's not really spam, but it's definitely like at the gate of spam. So it's likely something that could have gotten de-indexed for over optimizing their anchor text into the site. But as of right now, everything's looking okay. We don't do the Google check because obviously it's going to be de-indexed, and I'll show you that. There you go. So what we would want to do is do a wayback check and see, because it does have good metrics. It doesn't have that bad of an anchor text profile. It's fairly well balanced, even though it's kind of bordering on keywords that would be considered spam keywords. So it's worth checking out. So back in 2010, it was obviously probably a handbag store. And there you go. It kind of was some sort of store. Can't really see the graphics, so we'll just check another one. And you see lots of links, handbaggy links. So it's, I mean, it's pretty risky at this point. We'll take another look. And we see index, so the site is obviously maybe a new host here, or changing what it was or what it's going to be. And we're not really seeing any major bad changes, so I might as well check the last one too. Oh wait, there we go. We see Chinese, no good. So the search ends there. Yeah, there's really nothing to say more than when it goes Chinese or something with the de-indexed domain. There's nothing you can do. So if it's an expired domain and you do a wayback check and you see Chinese or you see a person's blog, yeah, it's not a good deal. So we'll just move on to the next one. I'll be really quick with these ones because I typically find expired are quite a bit harder to find good domains. This one has good metrics, good cluster, citation flow is quite a bit higher than trust flow, which is not a good sign, and we do see a little bit of a darker line riding the bottom. And then we see other anchor text percent is 84, and then same thing with handbags, Air Jordan shoes or Nike shoes, it's probably not that great, so we're going to just take it right into the Wayback Machine and see what is up. But typically, I don't know. This is a risky one. I mean, it's only $12 to register this to test it, but you might be passing penalties, and they don't have a lot of so it is an Air Jordan shoe site. They don't have a lot to go on in the Wayback Machine, and the domain's not that old. So I mean, maybe I'd use something like this for like a second tier link to a Web 2.0 or something, just because it's cheap, but it doesn't have any dangerous stuff on it. You can check the anchor text profile. That was another one of the checks that I had listed initially. And you can see, yeah, I mean, they're using Air Jordan or Jordan in every single anchor text. So this has likely been de-indexed for a penguin penalty over optimization of your anchor text. So this is not something I would even spend $12 on just based on looking at this anchor text profile. So this is a good example though of you know, digging deeper into your research to really get some answers. So remember, there's you can look at backlinks for the amount of power. You can look at the detailed anchor text profile to see if there's any sort of like penguin penalty or stuff like that. So we're going to move on to the next one. ww100k.org. We have a 20 and a 26. We have a nice cluster. We have almost 40 referring domains, so that's all good. WW stands for Where's Waldo, which is awesome. We have a balanced anchor text profile, so everything here is pretty good. It's obviously de-indexed because it's de-indexed in Google because it's an expired domain. So where we're going to get our information is the Wayback Machine. So let's look at what it was. Should be something about Waldo. Where's Waldo 100K Ultra Marathon? So it's actually a marathoning site, or was a marathoning site. So we'll just move forward. And then the site was taken down. The CGI bin, that's a page of hostings available, but nothing's on the host. And then there you go, straight up Chinese. So search is over. Don't want that. So we're going to go on to the last one in my list. and that is Scottdale Irish Pub. So we have trust flow of 9. We're on the route. We want to check the sub. And we have 21 referring domains, which is just making it. The trust flow went up to 18, which is not bad. We have a decent little cluster here. A URL's number 1. Odenhogs, which maybe that's a beer or something, or an owner. So it's related. Click here. So a lot of URL brand and related keywords. So actually this isn't bad here so far. It's not the strongest domain in the world. We can once again go look at backlinks to see if the backlinks support the trust flow. Here you have a decent link. That's a no follow. Here you have a decent link. Here's a decent link, and then they kind of start going down. So I mean, you have like 4 or 5 decent links in there, so it's not bad. You got to remember though that this is an expired domain, so when you go buy this, you're buying it for the cheapest you can get any domain. So let's just go make sure nothing's funky with it, and we will check it out in the way back. 2008, so it's got some decent age, and it was, we can't really tell what it was because that image is broken. I mean, we know it's obviously supposed to be a pub. So it was used as a 302 to ODSAZ. I'm going to back up here. Was it still used as a 302 later on? Oh, I'm missing it. Okay. There we go. No, can't find anything. And then the last entry is kind of the same thing. No, we're still, okay, yeah, the same thing. So with this domain, it was used as a 302, which we kind of had that situation back in the pre-release. When it's used as a 302, it's not that big of a deal. It didn't change hands, turn into a PBN, so it's fairly clean. It is an expired domain. You can pick this up for $12, which is pretty good. So this is another one that you want to use for a Web 2.0 link or linking out to your social profiles that power up your money sites. So that kind of does it. Hopefully you guys got enough. I did 10 examples there, 4 expireds and 6 pre-releases. It shows you my research process in its entirety, that when I kind of run into a question of why did this happen or that happen, I do have the tools at my disposal with this process to find out what's going on with each of these domain names. So that's the end of this video on how I research domains for my PBN. And one of the things you guys may have noticed is that I was able to pull from a pretty amazing list of domains, you know, with trust flows up in the 34 and hundreds of referring domains. Sometimes here we have 337, trust flow 29, trust flows over 30 with balanced citation flow. So these are just amazing stuff that you don't see a lot of every day. So my research and my method of how I find these domains has kind of been something I've crafted over the last couple of years. I've tried and tested a lot of things, and for that reason, the third video is going to be a paid only video, which I'm going to outline how I get lists of these domains, how I filter the lists down so that I'm only looking at domains with high trust flow, a lot of referring domains, and that are indexed, so that it really speeds up my process. But I'm looking at a lot of domains all at once. And so what I'm going to do is make this a paid video for those who are super serious about building a solid PBN. I don't want this video getting thousands and thousands of views and lots of shares and stuff like that, because I just don't need that many SEOs understanding my process and then doing it, because the worst thing is when too many people know how to do something, everybody does it, and then it kind of ruins it for everyone. So my way of protecting against that, I'm going to charge for this video only for the people who are super serious about it. I'll try to build in some more amazing value, but trust me guys, like the way that I do my PBN research to find these domains is super awesome. And when you combine that with using a drop catch service like Phoenix, it's just like non-stop amazing domains coming into your PBN. And there's a lot that you can do with that. I mean, you can sell these domains. I mean, how much would someone pay for a domain like this, you know, on Facebook and all those Facebook groups? You could start up your own PBN rental service like I have. I'll kind of show you guys. So here's my new and improved rental service, and as you can see, I sell domain packages based on trust flow strength. You can see all the way from up to 30 plus, where I'm selling them for, you know, $20 per link per month, for 5 links and stuff like that. So I mean, you can do anything you want. Start a PBN rental business. You can sell these domains just one-offs. It's anything you want. So there's just tons of advantage to knowing how to find this level of PBNs, and I'm adding these to my my repertoire all the time. So if you guys are super interested in getting to that video, I'll post the link. It'll be a video series. 1 and 2 are free for you guys. I think it's really good information that you can use anyways. But if you really want to go for the big stuff, if you really want to get these powerhouse domains with, like, you know, this kind of stuff, just grab that 3rd video, and yeah, man, you'll be on your way to doing whatever you want, ranking sites, selling domains, and building PBN. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if I see you in the 3rd one, awesome. If not, I really, really do hope that you guys got a lot of information. Please leave comments. Please let me know what you think of the information, and I will talk to you soon.